Hello, my name is John Didi, professor of political science at the community colleges of Baltimore County. Today, I am interviewing Sarah David, a candidate for the office of Baltimore County State's Attorney. And welcome to the show.
Thank you, John.
First question I want to ask is, tell me about yourself and why you are running for Baltimore County State's Attorney.
Well, great. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on in this discussion. A little bit about me. I grew up in Baltimore County. I grew up in Pikesville. And to answer the important Baltimore question, I went to Pikesville High School. I then went to Johns Hopkins University. I studied political science and Arabic there, and then actually moved to Cairo and then Morocco, and then to Belfast, Northern Ireland, where I studied comparative ethnic conflict, and came back to the United States to work for the New York City Police Department in their counterterrorism division. I was the primary briefer to the Deputy Commissioner for Counterterrorism, and I worked in the Joint Terrorism Task Force doing active cases in New York and around the country. I then came back to Maryland for law school at University of Maryland and clerked for the appellate court here, and then went to the Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office with Greg Bernstein, and then the Maryland Legislature, where I was Chief of Staff to the Chair of the Judicial Proceedings Committee. And now I do political corruption and police misconduct prosecutions all over the state of Maryland. And I'm running for state's attorney because, in addition to all of that, I'm a mom of two kids. I came back to live in Baltimore County, and I want to build a safe Baltimore County. I think that, we should be building a community that's not just safe for us, but will be safe for our children. And I want to focus on crime prevention and building a better future for our county.
What do you think is the biggest issue in this race? Number one thing you're really concerned about that you want to hit the message home to voters.
I think the biggest issue in this race is making voters feel safe and understanding that their safety is a priority in the county. And understanding that our county can do things differently and that we have been doing things the same way for a long time and it's time for change. I think that the message that we can do better is what's resonating with voters and certainly what I'm bringing to the table in this race.
Recently, a lot of attention focus on the issue of crime has focused right on the heart of Towson, the it's basically ground zero for Baltimore County. What are your thoughts about what's going on there, and what do you see as some solutions to deal with this?
So I live in Towson, so I'm right there, and actually, had police officers at my door because one of my neighbors' houses, somebody had tried to break into, and it turned out that was 15 houses in our neighborhood right here in Towson, and so that's a big change. For the Towson area to start seeing an influx in that type of crime. And I think that what we need to be doing is being proactive about how we address the crime. We need to have people come together to talk about not just what to do that's reactive, not just to do once a crime has happened, but what we can do to prevent crime in the first place. And that requires a lot of partnerships and that it requires a lot of strategic discussion. I'll give you an example. When I was at the New York City Police Department, counterterrorism wasn't really something the police had been doing. The police had been working on responding to crime, which was important in the city, but now there needed to be a shift. There needed to be a shift to a different type of way of looking at crime, the prevention of a terrorist attack. And so what the city did is they brought in people like me to help educate the police about what is counterterrorism, what's happening in the Middle East, what types of different tactics do we need to address the crime that's happening. So in order to address the things that are happening in Towson, we need to shift. We need to have different tactics than what we have done before. And again, that comes with a lot of community partnerships. That comes also with a lot of data. Our county is woefully behind in reporting sort of what's happening when it comes to prosecutions and when it comes to crime in our county. We need to make sure that the public knows what's happening so that they know what types of solutions will work. I think we also just need to try a lot of new things that are happening in other places, and I'm happy to expand on that as well.
One of the big issues that people have talked about recently is juvenile crime. It scares a lot of people. And I always tell people that the problem with juvenile crime is people with underdeveloped brains are doing stupid stuff. But you still have to deal with the problem. What would be your solution to try to get a handle on juvenile crime to make people feel safer, but also bring those numbers down?
And I think that one of the big challenges we have, to come back to the point I've been raising, is we don't have those numbers. The Baltimore County State's Attorney's Office doesn't report any data about what's happening in juvenile offenses. And it's making the public feel really insecure and really unsafe. As I talk to people, they keep saying, well, I experienced this carjacking, or I experienced this, and then nothing happened. Nothing happened. And the question is something happening, and is the right thing happening? We have different, we need prosecutors in our juvenile division that are focused on juvenile crime. Right now, the juvenile division is used as a training point in sort of the prosecutorial journey. You go to district court, then you go to juvenile, and then you go to circuit court. I'm going to get rid of that. I want our juvenile division to be one with focused juvenile prosecutors. And the reason for that is the resources, the way that cases are done, the things that are available are so different in juvenile cases. And so we can't be sort of asking, brand new prosecutors to be handling such an important issue in our county. And look, there are cases where we need to have a real focus on accountability. And then again, we really need to focus on the prevention piece. We are not doing enough to get into the community, into our schools, and work with community partners to help prevent juvenile crime in the first place. And I think our office, the state's attorney's office, needs to be more of a presence in our community to do that.
What do you feel is the best deterrent for crime? What's the thing that can basically keep the bad guys to say, I shouldn't do that?
So I think that deterrent for crime, I think that's a great question, because it varies based on the types of crime, right? I'm a corruption prosecutor, and the deterrent for that can just be charging one case. Right? It can be sending a message about we don't tolerate this type of behavior. And that can be a big deterrent in novel cases or things that are coming up in our technology spaces, just taking the risk of charging something difficult. And then look, we have to make sure that we're showing that when it comes to violent repeat offenses, that we are building cases so that we can investigate those crimes and make sure that those people are isolated from society. I think one of the biggest challenges that we've seen in the county also relates to victim cases. We need to make sure that people are going to be held accountable for domestic violence and sexual assault here in our county. It's a big challenge for victims if they feel that they're going to report these types of crimes and then nothing's going to happen. And so that's again where, showing that we have accountability is going to be a really big deterrent for people committing those types of offenses against victims. But also we need to create systems that give people opportunities so that they're not resorting to crime. And that goes to the prevention piece. So we need to make sure that we are looking at opportunities for people to get jobs, that we are looking opportunities to treat mental health and to treat addiction, because those types of crimes aren't going to be deterred by the consequence. They need a system in place to make sure that the crime isn't what's resorted to in the first place.
One of the biggest problems, I think a lot of people have the perception in Baltimore County, is the crime we're getting is associated with Baltimore City. If you are elected state's attorney for Baltimore County, what type of relationship are you looking to build with the Baltimore City state's attorney, currently Ivan Bates? What would you do to kind of build a relationship and partnership to work together with him?
So the wonderful thing is that I know Ivan Bates, and I know also the state's attorneys in our neighboring counties. And I think that there is a focus on Baltimore City, but one of the things that I really focus on when we talk about dealing with crime in Maryland and in Baltimore County is that crime has become more regional in nature just because of how crimes are committed and how people communicate, right? These borders, with the technology that we have, you and I can be on a cell phone communicating, committing crimes in different counties very easily. And also I can be sitting in Baltimore County and engaging in significant stalking, online harassment, and other types of things in Harford County and Anne Arundel County. And so one of the things that I really want to do when, in our relationships with state's attorneys is also make sure that we're making sure that our laws can be changed so that we can address regional crime in the way that it needs to be addressed, as opposed to saying, okay, this is the little piece that happened in Baltimore City, this is the piece that happened in Baltimore County, finding ways to address the whole crime. An example would be, if I stole from a restaurant in Baltimore County, and then I stole from a restaurant in Baltimore City, and then I stole from a restaurant in Harford County. Right now, I would have to be charged individually in each of those cases. But we can change that law so that we can be charged in a way that makes sure that everyone is held accountable. And we need to focus on sort of that regional safety, because these county borders are not sort of are not really where crime stops or starts.
Very good point. That's something I never thought about, to be honest with you. What is the biggest change you would make to the state's attorney's office from basically the current, uh, basically state's attorney Scott Schellenberger? What would you change what he's been doing to what you would do if you are elected state's attorney for Baltimore County?
So I see the role as state's attorney as the elected official responsible for public safety in the county. And I think that our office, the state's attorney's office that I run, needs to be in the community, needs to be engaging with members of the community, needs to be educating whether it's real estate, whether it's businesses, on best practices so that we can get the convictions that we need. I think a lot of people don't think, they think about sort of, oh, we want accountability. But the way that you get accountability in cases is by getting convictions. And in order to get convictions, you need community buy-in. You need witnesses to feel comfortable coming to your office. You need the public to be educated about your office and what they do. And you need to make sure that victims of sexual assault, domestic violence, feel that it's a place where they can come and talk about not just a prosecution, but tools to sort of make sure that the fatality risks and risks that they're facing are reduced. I see the office as something that's not just in one building prosecuting cases. Certainly we'll do that, but I think the office needs to be a space that is engaging with the public and that is focused on, again, the underlying causes of crime and that preventative piece, not just the reactive piece.
Last question I'll ask is this. Thinking of people you've worked with in the past, thinking of state's attorneys nationwide, even locally, who would be your role model as far as being the next state's attorney?
So, I'm honored to be endorsed by Greg Bernstein. Greg hired me for my first prosecutorial job in Baltimore City, and I really appreciated what the strategic vision that Greg had about not just running a great office, but being an office that great people wanted to join. I think that one of the things that I really aspire to model, sort of outside of just the policy issues we talked about, is creating a space where we have really good, committed prosecutors who are excited about the work that they're doing. And I think that, bringing that type of sophistication to the county will be an exciting asset. And I really think that, Greg did a great job of bringing Baltimore City into a modern space and addressing some of the issues of getting that office to a place where it had sort of, was getting grants, was acting in sort of modern and exciting space.
Okay, I want to thank you again for taking the time to do this interview, and I wish you well on the campaign.
Thank you so much, John. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome.